Hello, Belinda.
Hi, Omar. It is a wonderful day to have Arlene and Susie, our guest, with us today for this live practice. Susie has been such an amazing advocate and team member of Gratitude Blooming, helping us to really expand what we're here to do through yoga and living with intention with the card deck. So I love that we have an opportunity to practice together with new and familiar friends.
I know it feels I had a vacation the last 2 weeks, and it's exciting to get behind the mic and hold space with you again. It was incredible to go away, went off to Guatemala, stayed with the Mayan family, spent a week in Hermosa Beach and with my cousin's place, and just really now kind of coming back into the swing of things. I can sort of feel the pull of fall coming fast and furious already.
Yeah. And it's just beautiful that every week we have this opportunity to pause together for ourselves and in this kind of collective space. And more, I'm just feeling such an important need to have these like slowing down times. So yeah, Omar, I'm curious how it's been feeling coming back, because a lot of our work, we talk about transitions. How has the integrating back been feeling?
The first day of school for my daughters was yesterday, and they popped up out of bed, their new outfits for first day of school. And then today I was like, hey girls, time to go, so that sort of like, first day excitement sort of very quickly becomes like, okay, now we're back to this. And I think that part of it is like, okay, how do we hold this constant shift? And I think this is coming up in a lot of the conversations that we're holding for a lot of organizations and teams that are asking us to bring the kind of gratitude blooming kind of methodology to them is, how do you pause, particularly in the face of uncertainty, and how do you sort of treat uncertainty as a friend, right? Like we always say, silence is a participant, right? And so creating room for not knowing the answers. And so traveling was very disruptive, constantly it was beautiful because we were staying in different people's homes in Guatemala and just really getting a feel for the communities and the culture. And I really sort of enjoyed the Mayan kind of cosmology that I began to learn. And our host said they look at the world through the lens of harmony, that if the water is clean, then they are clean. If the tree is healthy, then they are healthy. And so I've really been sitting with that feeling of harmony. Like it's not just about me, but my relationships all around me and me to them. Like, what is the state of that? And so I feel like that's kind of what we're helping people do in pausing. It's like, okay, let's create a little healthy environment and space for us to sort of reconnect.
Well, in your absence, Omar, I was like, this last week, I was like, let me do a lot of things and get lots of things done. And it was an interesting energy where I had this very strong desire and expectation of progress. And I really had the hardest time staying grounded on the land. And it was one of those weeks where I really had to take my own medicine. Like, you are not in the state to do the things that you want to do. Like, can you just let it be? And it just was a reminder to me about just like, this is so powerful, this simple act of stopping and reconnecting with what's your intent? What are you here to do? How that can really help to bring more harmony and balance in many ways.
Well, and this is great having Susie here, who has this great kind of depth of experience in yoga. And yoga, I feel like, is a great way to physically practice balance and harmony. And we're going to get to pull a card. Is that what we're doing today?
Yeah. And I just love this story of how we even got to connect with Susie. I literally have a really dear friend, Tina, who is neighbors with Susie in San Francisco. And Tina was holding space for a friend gathering, an overnight retreat at her house. And she was like, I have this amazing friend, Susie. She's going to be holding space for us with a yoga class. And Tina had gifted Susie the card deck. And literally that yoga experience was infused with intention. And Susie, it was beautiful that your yoga studio had the card deck, and you even, referenced a card that was really inspiring for you. So I'd love for you to kind of share this seemingly random synchronistic connection to gratitude blooming. How has it been for you just discovering this unexpectedly, and what has unfolded for you in your life right now in collaboration with us?
Yeah, absolutely. First of all, thank you so much for having me on the podcast. I'm a little nervous, but anyways, I'd love to share my experience. It was just, as Belinda, you always talk about, just paying attention and following the crumbs. And so it was such a lovely gesture for Tina to give me this card. And I started engaging with it, just in looking at the beautiful illustrations and looking at the prompts. But you were kind of talking about the power of the pause, and I didn't really give myself the time, and I wasn't really patient enough to really fully dive into the practice until I started listening to the podcasts. And I feel like everything kind of opened up for me because I almost didn't have the language. I mean, I admit I am a yoga teacher. I do talk a lot about emotions, but just personally, I felt like I really haven't done a lot of that work in a deep way. So I felt like the podcast gave me a pathway to really dive deeper into my emotions. So it just kind of came alive for me. And then I sequenced my classes, and I thought, oh, this would be a great opportunity to infuse some of my classes with an intention. And I try not to say too much or be, too didactic. And I just kind of drop the prompt in there. And if it resonates for people, people have come up to me after class and said, wow, that just hit the right spot at the right moment. So I've just been following what makes my heart sing, and it's really been exciting to collaborate. I've never really thought of myself as like a creative person, but it's just kind of opened up this new avenue of joy for me. And so I'm excited to see where gratitude blooming kind of expands.
And I just have to say that because of you, we were inspired to create the t-shirts that are really reminders for people to, for themselves. But then, you're walking down the street and someone sees the t-shirt you're wearing, they're going to get that reminder as a gift. And Arlene, you and Susie met in person at your studio in San Francisco. And I would love for you to share with us a little bit about the t-shirts and your experience, unfolding this with Susie.
I realize that I don't have the t-shirt here with me, but one of the things that was coming up, Belinda, as you were talking, and Susie, as you were talking about it as well, was that I really feel like I'm wearing the intention, which is just like a weird feeling, so the t-shirt is, it feels, I've never, thought of having a holy t-shirt other than maybe with holes, but like, it feels like a sacred thing that I put on with this intention. And I think it's where there's a play on words, right? So it's not really the intention that's in the prompt, but it's rooting for you. The daisies are rooting for you. And so I really had this sense of the first time when Susie brought the t-shirt over, I really had a sense that someone's rooting for me. And I sort of know it. I think we do have allies out there with the plants and nature all around us. So it's just beautiful. It was an unexpected thing I experienced with the t-shirts.
You can embody it, right? Like you can actually literally wear your intentions. I love that's the creativity, because even the I'm rooting for you came from one of our podcast guests, SJ. That was the card that he was reflecting on. And as he looked at them, that was the feeling that he got. He said, there are these two eyes looking up at me, and I feel like they're rooting for me. And so, it's just, I think this ability to prototype, to really kind of go from like inspiration to action, this is the praxis that we get to play with at Gratitude Blooming.
Yeah, who would have thought, Arlene, your illustrations back in like 2015, 2016, becoming the Gratitude Blooming card deck that became note cards, and now candles and t-shirts. Like, it's this whole ecosystem of how do we live with, more intention just by taking that pause for ourselves. How did it feel to see the art in that way, like your plants?
I've developed a healthy detachment, I think, from my art. I think all artists have to do that in some ways. So I really feel like a channel. When I had that magical feeling of putting it, well, the t-shirt is beautiful. Susie, you just selected such a nice, it's like a nice cotton, and it just drapes so nicely. It feels good. It feels really good. But when I feel the intention of the plant rooting for me, I feel like it's coming from the plant. I don't feel like it's my drawing. I feel like it's just, I happen to capture it, in that daily drawing practice, but it is the plant coming through to remind us. So
I also think
beautiful.
it's just a nice connection as well. So I was wearing the t-shirt the other day, and a few people commented. So I feel like they're little sparks of connection. And I think, like Jack Kornfield talks about, like vibrating the strings of everyone that you meet. And so it's just little reminders and intentions, like, I see you, I'm rooting for you. So I've had a few just resonance with people. So
That
was really, cool.
Those little sparks are just so powerful. Like,
They are.
I just received an email from one of the sponsors for our Gratitude Blooming podcast with Janum, and it was about an article about glimmers, like these little fractions of a moment. And my wife and I went to go see the meteor shower that was here a couple days ago, and got up 1 a.m, drove out a little bit to get to a place where we could be in a little bit more darkness. And we're staring up at the sky, and, these shooting stars would just come by like just fractions of a second. And there was a decent number of people out there, and just the oohs and the ahs that would come from just literally not even a full second, just like a fraction of a second. You would see maybe out of the corner of your eye, one of the shooting stars come by. And the idea was that these glimmers, these moments of awe, are really incredible counterpoints to triggers. Like, we're all aware of what triggers us, but are we really aware of those glimmers, those sparks, and like, how do we hold on to them with equal measure?
Yeah, it's incredible that also where our inspirations are building on top of each other, and we're creating something bigger together. Like, and we recently also just made a tote bag out of the t-shirts, because Susie was literally talking to the printer, and they were like, yeah, I could just easily make this into a tote bag, and you could have that too. And like, all these different ways that we can inspire each other and build off of that. Like, that's incredible.
I think I found about him on Instagram. I was like, oh, look, we have tote bags now. I know I was away for 2 weeks, but geez.
Yeah, the garden is very wild and very healthy. So Susie, in our live practice format, we love to hold space for a question that you are holding, or an intention that you're holding, as a way to inspire others to take that same pause as they're listening and watching this for their lives. So I'm curious, what's alive and most present for you right now that you would love to ask nature about?
Well, I still feel a lot of the energy around the summer. It's about, spending time with family and travel, a lot of activity. So a lot of energy, external energy and gathering energy from other people. And I feel this shift going into fall, like you were saying, Omar. And so I'm just trying to hold on and not sort of rush through to the next thing. So I think the intention of just slowing things down and pausing is still relevant for me. But I'm also kind of leaning into this whatever, this next season, this next transition, which is more of an inward turn, like looking inwards versus like expending energy outwards. This is a time really to kind of go inward. So slowly I feel myself kind of retreating a little bit or going inward, but still trying to relish in the my community, my friendships, my celebrations, all those things. So I don't think I answered the question.
How would you describe, as we're kind of getting ready to,
Uh,
for you to pick a card, how would you describe this season of your life right now? You're a mother,
mm,
you
mm,
used to work in the fashion industry, you've
mm,
been studying and teaching yoga for like 20 years. Like, how would you describe this particular season of your life as well?
mm. It just feels like a settling in. So I think I've always had some issues with like not doing enough, and it's all about achievement, and I never really felt comfortable, I guess. And so I feel like there's a settling in, and to really get and just to know myself a little bit more. All my relationships are changing. My relationship with my mother, my relationship, I've been in a very long-term marriage, my relationship with my kids. So I feel like everything is kind of moving and turning, and I am just settling into who I am and kind of trusting that I have the very best intention, and then just trying to formulate a new way of being with all my relationships.
Beautiful.
Omar, you want to kick it off for Susie? I love how you frame the opening.
So you're looking at the back of the cards, and there's 39, 7 rows, 6 columns. And part of why we look at the back of the cards is it gives us an opportunity to disrupt our sort of auto reply system. And, when we hold an intention, sometimes we already have an answer that we're sort of like, oh, I'm feeling this, so therefore I need this. And I think part of what the gratitude blooming practice invites is infinite possibility, to sort of recognize in any given moment, any number of things are actually possible. Our brain likes to sort of narrow the field of vision. And so as you're settling down, you might already be like, well, in order for me to settle down, I need to go do this. And by really kind of allowing the randomness to kind of disrupt that bias, where you're giving yourself a chance to kind of say, like, as I wind down, what might that look like in my life, and what might transpire because of that? So Belinda will scroll, and as you can either just tell her to stop at one of the rows, 7 rows, or if there's a number 1 through 7 that speaks to you, you can do that as well.
How about 4? 4th row.
All right. 4th row, and then 1 through 6.
And the second card.
All right. So rooting in. Ooh, number 21, the daffodil, representing the theme of beautiful sadness. How can you express gratitude to yourself and others when experiencing endings, and trust that beautiful new possibilities will be born? So we'd first just invite you to look at the art itself. Like, don't worry about the prompt. Just describe in some ways the most literal way you can the art that you see before trying to interpret it.
Well, I see beautiful blooms atop a pretty narrow stalk. Pops of color, like the stalk seemingly thin and maybe delicate, but this beautiful bloom sitting on top of it. Beautiful colors. I love yellow. The colors, kind of remind me of light. I know it's one of the first flowers that pop up during the spring. It's very short-lived, so really an invitation to enjoy the beauty while it lasts. And then just with daffodils, after the blooms die, you kind of let all the energy go back into the soil. So you don't pull out the daffodils. So you kind of let it die back, and there's beauty in kind of that drawing back into itself.
And just now, as you look at the theme of beautiful sadness and the art, does anything come up for you with those two elements?
I sort of, I'm going to maybe make that connection into yoga a little bit, if that's okay. So the last pose in all yoga classes is the pose that's in every yoga class is Shavasana. And it's
My favorite.
about, yeah, everyone's favorite. And it's just about letting go, not necessarily giving up, or just kind of giving in to the pause, the rest. And many times with intentions, you are asking for this transition into this next phase, but sometimes the letting go is really hard and leaning into the unknown. So I kind of feel the daffodil and the beautiful sadness is kind of a sort of speaks to that last ending, making way for new beginnings, I guess.
Yeah, now as you think about the intention and the sort of moment of life that you're in right now, what comes up for you with the art and this theme of beautiful sadness?
I guess there's a part of me, I'm an empty nester. Both my kids have left, and they're creating their own beautiful lives on their own. And so I feel like I've put in my life's work has been in taking care of the family. And so now what is my role? So it's that um, letting go of that, I don't know, impact or, relationship, and, kicking them off the dock and letting them go to build their own lives. But there is sadness in there because I really long for, when the kids were really little and creating family. There's definitely a little bit of sadness, but the prompt says it's beautiful because they are both, thriving and doing what they love. So it's been a wonderful experience to watch them.
Yeah, I just picked up a book recently called Letting Go, I think by David Hawkins. And, he talks about letting go as surrender. And, to be honest, I've actually never really liked that framing. I like the idea of like, oh, surrender, just, relinquish. And, but to me, part of it has always felt in some ways forced, right? And recently, I've been focusing my practice around receiving. And receiving is a way easier way for me. In some ways, there's an irony, right? It is easier for me to feel like I'm receiving as a way of letting go. It is easier for me to feel like I'm receiving as a way to surrender. Because surrender feels like I have to do something. Whereas when you receive, you don't have to do anything. You just have to accept. And in that acceptance, then I have found it a much more of a grace in this sort of moment. And so just as you're feeling, like what feelings come up for you, as you sort of hold this idea of letting go or receiving?
Well, not that you're losing a part of yourself. I mean, basically, you're raising your kids, and the whole idea is to let them go and to be independent. So there was, I think, initially a sense that, oh, I'm losing a part of myself. So just this idea of like, what do I need to fill it with to make myself feel whole again? So I think I've been just kind of reaching out to just, finding ways to kind of be okay with change, finding ways to find connection within my community. And then nature is, I've always been really outdoorsy and, active, but I really think the gratitude blooming cards and this whole practice has really invited me to slow down and to really pay attention. So I do really look to nature for a lot of clues. And it's interesting that I was talking about just feel that sense of feeling whole. And I was on a beautiful hike a few months ago, and I saw the trail kind of got lost because there was still snow, but underneath you can see like little glimmers and changes, the snow melting, there's flowers popping up. So I think that I just paused there for like 10 minutes, just watching the snow drip and watching the changes. And so it's given me permission, it's given me just the opportunity, invitation to pause and to really be in nature a little bit more than normally I would have been.
Such a beautiful reflection, Susie. And your yellow that you're wearing matches the daffodil. I can't help but call that out too for people that are not able to see you. And yeah, this card just feels really resonant for these times, like this change of the season, so moving into fall, and just the uncertainty that maybe some of us are feeling. Like, so I loved how this is like a way to kind of be with the unsettledness that might come from the change that's happening internally and externally. So with that, I'm curious, we normally do like to pick a card for our listeners and our community. I wonder, is this the card? Do we feel complete? Do we feel like people need one more message, or is this like the message?
Let's pick another card. I feel like it's been a couple weeks, so
I love it. Omar, you want to pick for our community?
All right.
Pick two numbers.
I'll pick the first one, and then Arlene can pick the second number.
Got it.
I'll go with 5, row 5.
Okay. 1, 2. Okay, here we are. And Arlene?
I feel like, am I on mute? No. I'm going to go with 1.
All right. Ooh, number 30, geranium, representing harmony and balance. Can you see the harmony that arises from making peace with your choices? And, we're looking at this long stalk, sort of angled at an angle, and it's got 5 heart-shaped petals really at the center. And then it extends, and I guess maybe it's actually leaves that are in the center. And then it's sort of much smaller flower petals on the top. And so I love that this is emphasizing the leaves, which leaves are sort of like the Cinderella of flowers, right? Like they don't get the same kind of attention as the flower petals. But in some ways they're the ones that like absorb the sun, that allows the photosynthesis and growth and all of that to happen. And I love that it sort of relates to the story that I shared about the Mayan family at the beginning, which was really about how do we live in harmony. And, when we can live with water that is clean, then we are clean. If we can live with trees that are healthy, then we are healthy. And it's all in relationship. And I think that harmony comes from being in dialogue with the world around us, and that dialogue is a living conversation. The shooting star is can take our breath away and like move us because our hearts are open to everything that is happening around us. So I love this card for our community.
Yeah.
I love how kind of that fork leading to the 5 leaves all end with like a heart-shaped leaf.
Yeah, I love that we started the conversation with harmony and we ended it with this card. I think that's great. Yeah.
Well, wishing our listeners and our community, just more peace with what's present. I mean, isn't that all we can ask for, really, at the end of the day?
Well, and then to recognize that these changes do come with beautiful sadness oftentimes, right? And that, how we deal with uncertainty, make room for uncertainty, be in dialogue with uncertainty, that we can have harmony with uncertainty and the unknown, and let things go and know that they're going to sort of thrive in their own ways. So it's beautiful to be back. It's beautiful to see you all, and, so happy to be reconnected.
And thank you, Susie, for being, brave to step into this, the foreground, because, now everybody knows the amazing person that brought these t-shirts and totes into the world and helped us get the candles into people's homes. It's incredible. So we hope you check it out at gratitudeblooming.com in our shop to see the beautiful shirts of nature saying we're rooting for you.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Yeah, thank you. Lovely to be with you as well.
Cheers.
All right.
Cheers.
Bye.